Hey everyone, before we get into the video, I just want to say thank you for the support on the previous video and the one before that. If this is your first time watching, welcome. If you like what you see, then make sure you like and subscribe and maybe leave a comment. I have some video ideas for the future that you don't want to miss. Alright, with that out of the way, let's do it. Here are 3 YouTube channels with disturbing backstories. This video will cover dark topics, so viewer discretion is advised, and please don't harass any of the channels mentioned.
Hello everybody, this is an original song I wrote not long ago.
John Hinckley. This channel features original songs written and performed by John Hinckley. While there's nothing wrong with his songs, you might be shocked by his past. You see, in 1981, he tried to kill the President of the United States in hopes of impressing an actress he was obsessed with. Let me explain. John Hinckley Jr. was born on May 29, 1955 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Being the son of a wealthy oil man, Hinckley grew up privileged and had a relatively normal childhood. He would indulge himself in extracurricular activities and hobbies such as football and guitar. But when he entered high school, he became a recluse. His parents would simply pass it off as a phase, but neither of them knew that this would be the start of his mental problems. In 1973, Hinckley graduated from high school and attended Texas Tech University. Again, he was reclusive and would spend most of his time ditching class and listening to music. It seemed like the loneliness and homesickness only made his mental health worse, so by 1976 he dropped out. Now that he was out of school, instead of getting help, Hinckley decided to move out to Los Angeles in hopes of becoming a songwriter. This didn't go anywhere, and he had to move back in with his parents the following year. But during his time in LA, he saw something that would change his life forever, and for the worse. It was a little movie called Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver is about Travis Bickle, a Vietnam War veteran living in 1970s New York City. He suffers from insomnia, so he takes a job as a nighttime taxi driver. The corruption he sees on the streets, along with his crippling PTSD and loneliness, results in him taking the law into his own hands. This movie resonated with Hinckley, so much so that he started to incorporate aspects from the movie into his life. He started to base his personality off Travis, even going as far as copying his mannerisms and wearing his signature military boots and jacket. He created a fake girlfriend named Lynn, who was based off of Travis's love interest, and to make things even more sad, he would write to his parents about Lynn, and they bought it. But by far the most concerning thing to come out of this was his obsession with actress Jodie Foster. In the movie, she played Iris, a young runaway turned sex worker. In fact, she was only 12 when she took this role, and Hinckley was in his early 20s when he saw this movie. This obsession would continue well into her young adulthood, and by then, Hinckley's mental health had deteriorated and he was taking a number of antidepressants. In 1980, Hinckley learned that Foster was going to attend Yale later that year, so he moved to New Haven, Connecticut in hopes of finally getting her. At Yale, Hinckley figured out where Foster lived, and he would slip love letters and poems under her door. He also found her phone number and he would call her constantly. She did pick up a few times and she would answer either with confusion or irritation.
Who is this? Oh no, who is this?
This is Jody.
Who is this?
This is John.
John who? Oh no, not you, kid! Look, I really can't talk to you, okay? But do me a really big favor. You understand why I can't, carry on these conversations with people I don't know. You understand that it's dangerous and it's just not done, it's not fair, and it's rude.
Oh,
alright?
Well, I'm not doing this.
Well, I understand that, but it's the same thing. Okay?
So you just don't ever want to be calling?
No. It's been really nice talking to you.
It was obvious these attempts weren't working, so Hinckley thought of some outlandish and even dark ideas to impress Foster, one of which involved him hijacking a plane, and another involved him shooting himself in front of her. Eventually, he came up with the idea of killing the president. At this time, the 1980 presidential election was going on, and Hinckley took advantage of this. He followed Jimmy Carter throughout his campaign trail and almost got him at one point. During a campaign stop in Dayton, Ohio, Hinckley was just feet away from Carter, but he chickened out. This plan was put on hold after he was arrested at a Nashville airport for carrying guns in his suitcase. And as we know, Ronald Reagan won the election and now Hinckley had a new target. On March 30th, 1981, Hinckley sent one last letter to Foster, then headed to the Washington Hilton Hotel, where Reagan was giving a speech. After giving his speech, Reagan walked back to his limo and that's when Hinckley fired 6 shots at him. Reagan, along with White House Press Secretary James Brady, Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy, and police officer Thomas Delahanty, were all struck. All 4 survived. However, Brady was left partially paralyzed with brain damage. He remained like this until his death in 2014. At his trial, Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was sent to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. During his time, he was carefully watched and medicated, but despite all of this, he still had feelings for Foster. In 1987, he requested to leave so he could visit his family for Easter. The judge then ordered his room to be searched, and it was discovered that he had writings about Foster and photos of her. Also, quick side note, I didn't know where to put this, but I really wanted to share this, but in this same search, it was also discovered that he was exchanging letters with Ted Bundy, and he was also considering writing to Charles Manson. Anyways, Hinckley would start to make small improvements afterward, and by the early 90s, he was taken off his meds and allowed to wander around the hospital. By 1999, he was allowed to leave the hospital under supervision. And another side note, by this time, he was in a relationship with a patient named Leslie DeVoe. And with that, I just want to say, fellas, if you're struggling with love, just remember, if this literally me guy can find love after attempting a political assassination, then so can you. Anyways, in 2016, Hinckley was released from St. Elizabeth, but under restrictions. Some of these restrictions include not getting in contact with Reagan's family, Foster's family, or Brady's family, that's obvious, not possessing a firearm, alcohol, or violent media, not speaking to the press, and not having any Jodie Foster memorabilia. As time went on, he had fewer restrictions, and in October 2020, Hinckley was allowed to showcase his art and music under his own name, and that's how the channel was born. In June 2022, his remaining restrictions were lifted, and he is now a free man. After his lift, he did a number of interviews where he expressed his regret and apologized for his crimes. Since then, he has started a label called Emporio Records. He just finished making a documentary about himself and redemption, and he finally performed at a venue. I'm saying finally because whenever he booked a venue, the place would receive threats and get cancelled.
You know, authenticity and creativity are an interesting match. We don't like to think of ourselves as robots.
Keith Raniere Conversations. This channel hosted interviews between self-help guru Keith Raniere and a guest. Each interview featured a different guest, and they would ask Raniere questions on an array of topics. However, if you listen to Raniere, you might be baffled by his answers, because a lot of what he says is just rambling. It's a whole lot of nothing, and his guests are taking it like it's the most profound wisdom ever dropped.
So one would say authenticity is being as you are and expressing as you are, at least to some degree. And as you are is, of course, the sum of your whole past. So when someone's being authentic, you get the feeling that not only that there's a person there in the moment, but somehow you reach into their very essence and you meet a unique individual.
I don't know why, that makes me want to cry. It's beautiful.
Well,
Sorry.
I think these are all things that we strive for. You know, we strive as individuals, we strive to break through a type of existential isolation. We want to touch someone. We want to know that other people have souls. We want to experience this. We want to experience connection, things like what we call love, and compassion, and even something like, as I say, connection or rapport. Some people call it an energy or whatever, but now we're not talking to a machine,
Right.
We're talking to another human. And even if that human is a machine, somehow we imbue it with, we even ask the question, is this thing alive? Is this thing thinking?
Yeah.
Now, there's a reason for all that. Aside from being a self-help guru, Raniere was also running a sex cult within his pyramid scheme company. Now, let me explain. In 1998, Keith Raniere and Nancy Salzman founded Nexium, an organization that provided self-help programs to customers. These programs, or as they were called, intensives, were too expensive for the everyman, but that didn't stop rich people from attending. You had wealthy elites such as celebrities, CEOs, and family heresies all wanting to improve certain aspects of their lives, and they were willing to throw thousands just to get that. As time went on, Nexium only got bigger. There are now Nexium centers throughout North America, as well as new programs to help people. Out of all these programs, the a cappella group has to be my favorite.
Roxanne, you don't have to sell your body to the night.
Anyways, but underneath all that influence and wealth were some shady practices. Nexium was one huge pyramid scheme. Members were encouraged to recruit their friends and family and earn income if they took more classes. Of course, this was rigged and only a few members got this. Aside from this, Nexium was also a cult. Their programs were designed to make students vulnerable by breaking them down mentally. They had to call Raniere Vanguard and were brainwashed to believe that he was some sort of god. Oh, I should also mention that Raniere was a narcissist and pathological liar. Some of my favorite lies of his has to be claiming to speak complete sentences by age 1, having an IQ of 240. This was a take-home IQ test, by the way. He graduated with 3 degrees, one in math, biology, and physics, but he only graduated from his university with a 2.26 GPA, and he barely passed his classes, so make that as you will. And finally, he was 12 years old when he taught himself high school math in just 19 hours. In 2015, Raniere started an inner group among Nexium called DOS, or Dominus Obsequia Sororium, a fake Latin phrase meaning master over the obedient female companions. He created this under the guise of being a women's mentorship group, and he had his highest female Nexium members take part. DOS operated on a master-slave system, so at the top you had Raniere, followed by the high-ranking members, and finally you had the slaves. Look familiar? When a slave, or more fittingly a victim, got recruited, they would undergo an initiation. These initiations would have the victim give collateral to their master. This collateral would either be in the form of explicit photos or a recording of themselves making false claims about their friends and family. Next, the victim would be branded with Raniere's initials near their pelvic region. After that, the victims were starved. Raniere had a thing for thin women, by the way. And finally, they had to have sex with him. This was truly disgusting. DOS was just a never-ending flow of vulnerable women for Raniere to take advantage of. In 2017, the New York Times released an expose on Raniere and DOS, and when the article took off, Raniere and a couple of DOS members ran away to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. They would later be found and arrested in March 2018. In 2020, Raniere was found guilty and sentenced to 120 years in prison. His confidants, on the other hand, pleaded guilty and received less punishment. Looking at his channel, there are only 2 interviews, one with Allison Mack and another with Mark Elliott. Allison Mack is an actress best known for her role as Chloe Sullivan in the show Smallville. She took these Nexium programs hoping to become a better actress, and she was able to rise in the ranks and become Raniere's right-hand man in both Nexium and DOS. In her sentencing, she was given 3 years in prison and a fine of $20,000. As for the other interview, Mark Elliott was a member of Nexium who claimed that the program cured his Tourette's. Moving on.
The deprivation which results from the existence of both cultural and feral values are the only reason why anyone wants to live. Life is suffering. Everyone has heard that statement, but they don't accept it at face value. They interpret it to mean that life has suffering, but life is suffering. What is the solution?
Cultural Philistine. For our third and final entry, let's talk about Cultural Philistine. These videos have no visuals. They only present a black background and we can hear a young man's voice. He gives his thoughts on various and questionable topics, such as mental health, antinatalism, religion, and... These recordings can best be described as contradictory and nihilistic ramblings. Now, if this already sounded creepy to you, then it may creep you even more once you realize that this channel was owned by Adam Lanza, the man who on December 14th, 2012 would murder 26 people at Sandy Hook Elementary School, 20 of which were only first graders. Adam Lanza was born on April 22, 1992, to Nancy and Peter Lanza in Exeter, New Hampshire. From an early age, he started to exhibit strange behaviors and was diagnosed with OCD, sensory integration disorder, and Asperger's. He was also an introvert who lacked social skills, and he would spend the majority of his time looking up mass murders on his computer. By the time he was 16, his parents had divorced and his mother took custody of him. Lanza and his mother didn't see eye to eye, but they did bond over their love for guns. In fact, Nancy introduced Lanza to guns from an early age, and the two would frequently go to the shooting range. On the morning of December 14, 2012, Lanza walked into his mother's room where she was asleep. He then shot her, packed his weapons, destroyed his computer's hard drive, and drove 5 miles to Sandy Hook Elementary School, a school he attended where he was younger. He then shot his way through the glass window and began his rampage. In less than 5 minutes, he claimed the lives of 6 staff members and 20 first graders. When the police finally arrived at the scene, he turned the gun on himself. A year after the shooting, it was discovered that Lanza had planned the attack, but as to why, no one knows. There's one theory that suggests he wanted to save these kids from the cruelties of life, and judging by the content in his videos, that could be the case, but until then, we don't know. Rest in peace to the victims, and my condolences to their families. Going back to this channel, it was created in September 2011, but it remained unnoticed until September 2021. You can't find it anymore as it was taken down by YouTube. There was another channel by the same name that served to archive his videos, but that was also taken down. I was too late to get a screenshot, but his videos can still be found online. Thanks for sticking to the end, it really means a lot to me. As I said in the beginning of the video, thank you for the support for the channel and for the videos. At the time of recording this, we are at 134 subscribers. That's pretty crazy to think about, honestly. So yeah, thank you all. Huge thank you to Berg321, Philistine, and Nick Crowley for giving me the inspiration for this video. I love you three, and yeah, if you like what you saw, if you're new to the channel, if you like what you saw, then make sure you like and subscribe. I have some pretty cool ideas in the future, and yeah, I still don't know how to end this, so bro fist.